Hi everyone, my name is Sasha J and this is
Dan Tester.
And today we're sitting here reacting to some street interviews that our team did, all about the retirement sandwich generation. Let's get into it.
Let's.
So we're all living longer than previous generations did. So when you retire, do you think you may have to look after older family members as well as younger family members potentially?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Coming from a Filipino background, it's always just like you have to take care of your mother and your father, even if you're retired. So, and also your grandkids as well.
And how do you feel about that in terms of like your finances? Like, do you worry about being able to afford to do that in this day and age?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, I mean, I hope that like the sort of safety nets and benefits that have been put in place through like super will be able to like at least have a sort of enough to like live comfortably.
I know we both jumped at the chance then, it was awesome. So I think there's some really good examples there around the uncertainty that exists around financial future, what's going to be available. What made you jump at that one, Sosh?
Just because I see it so much. It's a very big inflow of client worries at the moment that there is a generation that is living longer, and that obviously means, all right, we've got to probably finance that longer life lived, but there is that bit of a conundrum of, all right, if my parents are living longer, then I'm living longer, and therefore there's that next generation to also take care of. So it's just interesting because there is a huge inflow of these worries coming through, for me at least. What about you? Yeah,
look, talks to all the research that we're doing in this retirement sandwich report too. So, putting the oxygen mask on ourselves, but also having to worry about the generation above and, what's left for the generation below. And that's uncertainty. Obviously, we saw some examples there from a cultural perspective.
Yeah.
We saw an example just there about the guys talking about, the benefits of superannuation going to be there.
Yeah.
100%. That's why the superannuation system is in existence, because social security is under so much pressure now. Fast forward 10, 20, 30 years, imagine what it's going to be like then if people aren't preparing for these things now.
Yeah.
So I had a discussion with my mum about this and what she wants to do, and she has, I think, already put her name down for like maybe some type of like assisted living thing, or was looking into it. But realistically, it all comes down to the privilege that you have. And I come from like a well-off family, and so I think that ultimately when you have that backing of resources, you don't have to worry so much because you can pay for carers to come, you can stay at home, or you could go to an assisted living. So I think like ultimately that is a question that comes down less to the individual and more about like how we as a Western society have like quite individualized the idea of growing old and like outsourced it to like private institutions.
I think she's hit the nail on the head. It's almost like a haves or have-nots, or being able to afford that level of care.
Yeah.
This is a huge opportunity for those that can afford it
to
obviously plan for intergenerational wealth transfers, education for what that money is going to do for the next generation and the next. But then we've also got those that don't have that privilege. Yeah. Would you agree? I know you do a lot in the aged care space. There's a bit of
Definitely, it's a hard one. But I think just going back to what she's started off with is I had a conversation with my mum, and I really am stressing the fact of let's have these conversations
100%.
Because without that, you can't plan. And so it's great to see, someone like that where she's got parents to take care of and she's opened that can of worms, and it's probably a bit hard to have that conversation initially.
Of course.
But it helps us as well understand our clients to say, all right, do we have the money to be able to take care of your parents, or do we need to do more aged care advice and get, the Centrelink and the other help around involved? It's great to see that people are having these conversations.
And for those watching at home, the conversation that starts now only gets better as the conversation goes on. So it might be a difficult conversation to start, but this is a really good example of actually making that time and having that time together as a family to start those financial conversations or start those considerations around what planning actually needs to be put in place.
Things like that. But I myself would always take care of my mum. I love my mum, but I don't think that's something that she expects of me. Yeah.
Our research has shown that millennials and Gen Z are anticipating to feel those family responsibilities a lot more than previous generations ever did. Why do you think that might be?
I kind of would have thought most generations would have had that kind of pressure. I mean, I suppose there is this lingering thought in the back of my mind that there'll be less government support in the future. I think the what do you call it, the pension and all that, those kind of service super that we are established now, I don't think is a certainty will exist in the next coming generations in the same form.
He makes a really good point, because I hate to see clients, work their entire life and then almost bank on the fact that they're going to get some kind of entitlement at retirement. And whilst, I would hope that they do, if that's something that they're eligible for, it's a very worrisome thing when I hear people are basing their entire retirement or taking
waiting
care
for
of
the pension.
Exactly. And sometimes when it comes down to it, they might not be as eligible as they thought they were, or in 10, 15 years time, we just don't know what that is going to look like. So I think, having almost a backup option or having a plan in place to not fully just put, your eggs in one basket
Definitely.
is really important.
And I think this just talks, this for me is actually really a bit of an eye-opener from a positive sense, because we've got someone who's actually just recognised that something, as we were just discussing earlier, the social security system is not going to be there forever. It's under a lot of immense pressure. It may be there in some capacity, but at what point is that kind of going to break or not be financially able to continue to the level that people need it, or to have a standard of life and living? And that's, again, the big focus on super. So really good educated response from this guy. And again, a lot of the research that we're talking about at the moment in our research paper does highlight that this is a huge need for a lot of families to start the conversation, think about the planning, because it's going to be here. The next 20 years, intergenerational wealth transfer, there's a lot of money that's flowing and changing hands. But where's it going? What are we doing to help ourselves and help those above us, and also the next generations below us?
I would just say it's like the cost of living, and that there's like a bigger disparity between, like the wealthy and the poor now. So that, potentially 100%. As like the aging populations, they don't have the same like resources to rely on, like I said, for those sort of like carers and things to come in, so they are going to rely on their children, and also just the fact that we in like Western society do all like live separately, whereas if you go over to like Eastern cultures, it's quite normal for the families to remain together in some way, whether it's like on a lot or a unit or just within an area.
Well, I think a big thing for like my generation is probably the pressure and the sort of unrealistic expectation of like being able to own a home.
Do you think your responsibilities for your family may impact your ability to retire comfortably?
I personally don't think so, because I think that I have intergenerational wealth, as like I'm very privileged, and that's just like quite literally like being born lucky. But I would say that I am like quite literally like an anomaly, and that I don't think my experience represents most people. I think most people would be quite worried about how their life might be quickly uprooted in terms of like having to give up their job to be a carer. And I do notice that within people that I know, like whether it's university that I go to over there or people that I just know within my circle. It's a reality that I guess we don't have the same social dynamics of support, and then I think there's also like a lot of like welfare and like social sort of financial supports that are like pittance, so people have to like scrape by and live in poverty if they are relying on things like carer support.
Wow.
I
just think that brings it home, having that perspective and really considering, everyone is a unique scenario, and that's what good financial planning is all about.
For sure.
So taking, care of what you can control, not focusing on other people, really focusing on what you and your family need at this point in time.
No, I agree. And she made a really good point towards the end, where she knows people that have had to, say quit their jobs or make these rash decisions, which I think is a huge thing that we can avoid if we maybe talk about it and put a plan in place, because the last thing you want is during an emotional time where you're taking care of family that may be going into aged care is making the wrong decision. So I think it's super important to get that help that you need to help make more sound decisions financially.
Definitely. Well, if you've enjoyed the video today, obviously make sure you click all the links, like, subscribe, download the Retirement Sandwich research paper that we've produced here at Findex. And if you or anyone you know needs assistance with any of your financial planning, both now or in the future, please reach out.